Hello everybody, welcome to the lettering creed. While we wait for everyone to jump in, because I know there was a confusion with the time of the lettering creed, so we decided to start right in between the two times that everyone thought. Some people thought it would be at 10 a.m. Eastern time. Some people thought it would be at 10:30 Eastern time. So that was our mistake, but we decided to start it now so that there's we find a middle point. So welcome everybody. If you have been on a lettering creed, you know how this works. If you haven't been to a lettering creed, this is essentially a critique session for lettering pieces. So my name is Martina Flor. I'm a lettering artist, an author, and an educator. I run my own online academy. And in these sessions, I bring my students onto a live critique session. And what we essentially do is to go through some of the work they have done, and we give our feedback. And what is very interesting about these sessions is that it's not only about the things that I can say about the lettering pieces or the kind of feedback that I can give, but you are also a part of it. So I will be reading the chat all the time and kind of asking for your feedback. So I will bring your comments onto the feedback, and and we will go through 4 lettering pieces today. And I really want you with your eyes open, because the feedback we provide during these sessions is really essential for those that submitted some work. And I have to say that I have seen lettering pieces really take off after this session. And I think it's also very important. This is what I say to my students in the lettering seminar. I think this is very relevant as an event, because it's an opportunity for them to show their work. And I remember that as I was starting with lettering, I used to keep my practice very private and for myself, and I wouldn't show it to anyone. I wouldn't ask for feedback, and that was really detrimental to my own work. That was not really a good way of moving forward with my own work. And I always tell to my students in the lettering seminar to just show their work, share what they do. I encourage them to just share and give feedback to each other. And this is a session where everyone is kind of chiming in and looking at someone's work and treating it as if it was your own, and kind of providing very good feedback. So welcome, and as I said, open your eyes, because you're going to be a part of it, and I'm going to ask for your feedback and your ideas along the way. So we can already get started. We're going to start by the project by Orsi. We have a script lettering here, and before we get started, I actually wanted to ask, where are you joining from? Because I've seen that some of you is the first time the lettering creed, Yo-Yo said. So if you're joining from different parts of the world, it will be great if you just write it on the chat, and we can see where everyone is joining from. In the meantime, I'm going to present this first work that we are going to talk about. This is a script lettering piece from Orsi. She's one of our students in the lettering seminar, and she's a very productive student. I really love the little tiny people that she drew on the lettering piece already. I wonder if they are gonna turn into actual illustrations later on, or if these are just for us as little messages. But yeah, so let's get started with this one, right? So the first thing when I look at a lettering piece is I try to first go to the general, the overall shape of the lettering piece, and later on focus on the details, right? So the first thing that I noticed here is kind of like the shape of this lettering piece. So let me add a layer on top of this lettering piece, and I like to focus on the shape so that I can see what is the shape that this lettering piece is having on the paper, right? And the first thing that I notice is that, when I look at the lettering piece, I like to think of the lettering piece as something that has a north, a south, an east, and a west. And I always say, like, whatever is going on the north should be as well happening on the south, and whatever is going on the east should be happening on the west. I'm sorry, this is west, east. I put this is west and this is east, right? So what I mean here is that I see things happening at the northwest, right? And I see that here, for instance, at the north, there's like a big blank, and here at the south, there is a swatch. And I wonder if there should be, or there could be something happening at the north, right? The same happens with the east and west. I see something, something missing here, and I see as well that something is missing here at the west of this composition. So I wonder in which way, Orsi, you can sort of compensate that or balance that out, right? So I can see now that many of you are writing on the chat. So some of you are joining from Brazil, some from San Diego, Richmond, Virginia, amazing, Norway, Puerto Rico, hi from Arizona. Great. So from all over the world, thank you so much for joining again. And as I said, I'm getting started with giving feedback to this lettering piece, but I'm gonna be reading the chat right away. So whatever comment you have, whatever thing you want to say about this specific lettering piece, just write it on the chat. I will pick it up as I go. So as I was saying, I always look at this north, south, east, and west of a lettering piece, and I try to understand how I can balance out those bits, right? So what I wonder is what could be happening here at the north that balances out what is happening here at the south, and what could be happening here that balances out like the these white spots or these blanks that you can see here on the sides, right? So if you're working with script lettering and you are working with flourishes, there is kind of an easy fix to that, or you can use those flourishes to balance that out. I think flourishes are a great tool to balance your composition, because you can pull, I say always pull, but you can create flourishes in different places of your composition, right? So what I wonder is, or the big challenge now is how you can create flourishes here and how you can create flourishes there, right? So one idea would be to make this end a bit more flourish, right? So you will have a flourish right there. I wonder if you could have some sort of flourish with your R right here, right? And you will already cover this section of your lettering, let's say, or you will cover or compensate for that blank spot that you have on this side of your lettering. On this side of the lettering is a bit more challenging, because you have, let me delete this. You have I would say that you have few places where you could pull your flourishes from, and I always encourage my students to pull flourishes out of the letter forms, that you just don't come up with the flourish and you just add it there, but you just find those flourishes in the letter form. So one way to do that would be to change the shape of a letter. So for instance, to change the shape of that E and kind of make that E flourish, right? So if you have this kind of E, you can either make the bowl of that E really, curly. You can also have some sort of flourish at the top of that E. So I think that helped, like changing the shape of that specific letter shape will really help Orsi kind of create that that flourish on that side of her lettering, right? So I'm gonna keep looking at the chat and see which comments come up. For those that are just joining now, I wanted to tell you welcome, and that I will be not only giving comments myself, but I will be reading the chat, and I really want you to chime in with comments. So whatever you want to tell about this lettering piece, just write it on the chat, and I will bring it on the feedback round. And it could be anything. It could really be like positive comments. It could be also things to improve. Actually, you could also highlight things that you like from the lettering piece. So really use this space to train your typographic eye. Really use this space to kind of train your observation and look at these lettering pieces and think for yourself, like, what would I improve? How can I help this person? Or which comment can I give this person that will help them improve their lettering piece? So I was speaking about changing letter forms here. So this could be an option for you, Orsi. Also, perhaps changing the shape of that R could be a way of pulling this flourish out of the composition, right? So if I just write, or if I draw right on top of this, you could have an R that really has like a flourish at the top, and that will help you generate that flourishing element at the north of your lettering, right? So other than that, I can also say that, if I look at your lettering, I can see a lot of consistency. I can see a lot of consistency in the letter shapes. I can see that you have put a lot of attention to, the thickness of the strokes, right? That you have put also a lot of attention to how the shapes are. Look at those A's. They are not exactly the same, but they belong to the same family. So I can see a lot of really nice work here in terms of, achieving that consistency that you want to have in your letter forms. Another thing that I always recommend when you're working, let me just clean this up a little bit. So another thing that I recommend when you're working with script lettering and you are working with flourished compositions or compositions with flourishing is to use flourishes that are kind of compact. Whenever I work with flourishes, working with flourishes is really challenging, and I know that this will resonate with you if you ever done a flourished composition or a script lettering that has flourishes. It's really challenging as you start adding one flourish here, then you need to add another one there, and then you need another one here and another one here, right? So it becomes really complicated. So what I like to do with flourishes is to keep it simple and compact. But what I mean by compact is that I like to keep the flourishes like kind of having like a short life. So they start boom, 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 and they die young, let's say. So I always recommend that you just have that approach to flourishes, that they're not like this huge thing that goes from the front of your lettering to the back of your lettering and, has a lot of turns and stuff, but you just keep it very short, right? You just keep it as short as you can. So that's the first hint to start working with flourishes. And what I see here, Orsi, is that you are trying to, create this very long living, like these flourishes with a very long life. So, and that they also connect in a lot of places with a lot of other letters. So I think it will free you if you try to keep those flourishes really short and you let the flourishes kind of flourish in their place, right? So you try to have those flourishes really short and, staying in their neighborhood, let's say, also, so that they don't come from one neighborhood and they try to get into the other neighborhood, if you know what I mean. So Mallory, I'm very good at this parallels between between neighborhoods and places and stuff with lettering. So Mallory is saying maybe change the T. Okay, let me just get rid of this. Maybe change the T in neither to have a better transition into the flourish. So change the T in neither. So I see that. So you want to have kind of a transition of, you want to have let me just add a layer here. So you have a better transition between the T and the H. I'm not sure exactly what that means. So Sonia, I'm gonna continue with yours. If you want, Mallory, you can clarify that, because I'm not sure exactly which part you mean of that T. So Sonia, I like how she used the script lettering. I will maybe try to make the flourishes flow a little bit more natural. Yeah, so I think this will help you, Orsi, to make your flourishes kind of flow a little bit more natural. So Ruxel, a more tighter composition layout could really improve this one. So you mean, Ruxel, I believe you mean that if the letters or the words are brought together, then it will be, more compact. And I kind of agree. That depends a lot on what Orsi is gonna do with the flourishes. If she starts adding flourishes within the composition, then maybe this space between the composition between the words is really necessary, right? But if you don't have flourishes within the composition or within the words, then you might be able to bring the words together. So I want to make sure that we move on to the next one, so we have time to give feedback to all the projects today. So Orsi, I hope that it was useful and that it keeps you moving forward with your project. So let's look at this one. And I love that today we have a couple of projects that are more like logotype, in a logotype direction. So this one is, let me see, is from Tamara. Tamara is also on in the lettering seminar. And Tamara, I really love what you're doing here. I think I really like, first, all the, how much you're taking care of the consistency. We speak a lot about consistency in the lettering seminar, because consistency is really what holds your letters together. When you start seeing a common language between your letters, when you start seeing that they all use this similar elements, right? And I can see that you're paying attention to that here, right? So as I said, I will be reading the chat in regards to the comments you have on this one. So let me know what are the comments that you have for Tamara, and I will pick them up as I move forward. So Tamara, when I work on a lettering piece, the first thing that I try to incorporate are capital letters. And I say this because is something that many of us oversee, like the power that a capital letter can have in your lettering piece. And, capital letters can be really flamboyant, can be really expressive, and can help you make like a statement with your lettering. And I feel that seeing what you can do, or what you're able to do with these beautiful flourishes here and here, I wonder what would happen if you would turn this into a capital letter, right? And you would start maybe having flourishes there, or maybe having flourishes there, right? So that is really something that I will encourage you to do, to just see how far can you go when you add a capital letter here instead of a lowercase letter, right? The same applies to, sorry, I'm deleting all of it and I don't want to. So the same applies to your lettering piece when it comes to the composition. I mentioned before this concept that I use to evaluate the composition, which is like looking at the north, south, west, and east of your composition and see what is going on the north, what is going on the south, and what's going on the east and west, right? So when I look at your east and there's a flourish here, then I would like to have a flourish as well on the west. And I think perhaps having a capital letter or a flourish there will help you balance that out, the west and the east side of your lettering. And the same happens with this letter here, perhaps adding a bit of a flourish there. It all depends on how far you want to go with flourishes as well. I mean, because perhaps you want something that feels a little bit more clean, a little bit more like simple, and adding flourishes will definitely not go with that idea. So let me go on the chat. Okay. You're still speaking from the one about Orsi. Okay, so I'm gonna be reading on the chat if you have comments on this one. But the last thing I want to tell you, Tamara, is that when I can see that you're trying to create some consistency between the straight strokes and the rounded strokes. So you can see that here, right? So you know that you're using the same weight that you have here, right? You're using that right here. And I think I do speak about this optical adjustments during our lettering seminar, that our rounded shapes in general, they need to have a bit more weight in order to look the same way, like the same width and weight than the straight shapes. So in this case, that's why your L, if you now look at it, like actually look at the L in comparison with the E, you can see it here, for instance. Look at this situation. You can see that the E, or the kind of like the bowl of the E, looks slightly thinner than the stem of the H. So this is kind of an optical illusion, and even when those two stems are mathematically the same width, the rounded shape will look always thinner. So you need to adjust this, right? All right. I think many of us are still talking about the previous one. Let me see if there's any comment about this one. I think she can play. So Sonia is saying, I think she can play with the flourishes. Okay, you're speaking about the previous one. So Orsi, you're gonna get a lot of comments on your lettering piece, and that's great. Tamara, I hope this was useful for you and that it helps you move forward with this project. Now I'm gonna move on to a project by Marta. Marta is also in our lettering seminar. Let me just drink a little bit of water. So I love this, Marta. I think I really like the work you're doing with your decorative elements. I think it really creates a frame for your lettering, and I also think that these flourishes flow really good. I can see, and many of the things I'm gonna comment now can be applied to the other lettering pieces that we've been looking at that also have flourishes, right? So if you look at this lettering piece and how Marta is dealing with the flourishing, you can see that there's a relationship between shapes here. So you can see, let me just change the color to a orange. So you can see that there's shapes that kind of repeat. Oh, sorry, I want to create another layer. Okay, so you can see shapes that sort of repeat. So you can see that shape there. I can see the same shape there, right? I can see something going on here that is similar to what's going on there, right? So there is a relationship in, you know, the complexity of the flourishes, but also in the mother shapes that these flourishes use. So they all, you know, all of them are kind of rounded, very, very circular, and they have this big oval shape over there, right? So these mother shapes are the ones you want to really pay attention to when you do flourishes and when you're working with script lettering, for instance, right? So as I said before, I will be reading all of your comments about this lettering piece and bringing them onto the feedback round. So you can just write them on the chat. So the first thing, Marta, that I want to highlight of your lettering piece is the capital letter. I think it is a great idea, as I mentioned before, to use a capital letter to start your lettering and to really start your lettering with like a statement. I always feel that this really brings a good starting point for your lettering. And I wonder if there's a way for you to maybe end your lettering in a higher note. So as you start your lettering with this very expressive S, how can you end that lettering with a bit more expressive E? Perhaps have some of what you have there on your E right here, right? So, and have I always say that I like to think, so especially when I'm working with just one word, I like to think of the lettering piece as something like a song. So it starts with a very high note and it ends in a similar way, right? So it circles back to the beginning, right? So that's one idea. I really like how these features have a relationship in shape, right? So I wonder if you could bring some of that into the E. Perhaps what I just did is a little bit exaggerated. You can do it a little bit more subtle, but you can definitely add a bit more flavor of your S onto, or bring it onto your E, right? So another thing that I want to mention is consistency. And first, I would like to speak about consistency in terms of width and in terms of height, right? So I can see that there's some sort of guideline here for your letter shapes, and I feel that your A is really, although triangular shapes will probably have an overshoot, and we go through that during the lettering seminar, but I feel that perhaps the overshoot you are having for your A is too big, and this is why the U looks so small, because your D is already having this very flamboyant flourish there, and your A is having this overshoot that is very big, and then your U stays really small in this context, right? So perhaps your A needs to go down a little bit and have that be a bit more in scale with that U, right? So that said, the U looks very small, but also because it's very small. So if you look at your U in relation to your A is a lot wider than your U, right? So you will want to bring either make I would say your U needs to be just wider, and perhaps your D and your A also need adjustment, right? So your D next to your A is also a little bit wide, so maybe you need to find a middle point between the D and the A, and then your U will just follow, right? So let me just go on the chat. Okay, so Eoin is saying that maybe the letter sizes could be more consistent. For example, the D seems very wide compared to U and A. I agree with that. I think there's something there to think. You need to find kind of like a middle point between all of these letter forms. So Mallory is also mentioning that the U and the E look smaller. Yeah, a lot of people is loving this. Sonia, Salva Domingo. So there's something there in the width of these letters that needs to be adjusted. And I really like how you have tried to incorporate some of the features or the flavor of your S into all of your letters. I really like how you have done that with your A, for instance, right? So I think this is a brilliant idea. And when I look at this, I wonder if you could do something that helps you cover this space right there, because you do have a space. Now there's an arrow, but if you take it out, you can notice that there's a space there, right? So there's two options here. You can either do something with your flourishes, create something there. You can also use that information here and do something there, right? So, and that might help you kind of cover up that blank spot that you have right there. So that is one thing. And the other thing to pay attention to would be the width of your strokes. So if you look at this and if you look at the U, I think it's just that the U is not fitting quite well here. It's like perhaps it feels that you created all the letters and then there was the U missing, and we added the U and we kind of squeeze it in, right? So I think the U is very thin, it's very light, it's very narrow. So this one really needs to grow, and by doing that, you will also need to adjust the other letters. But overall, this is looking great. So let me see. Okay, Tamara, so I'm glad. Okay, no, we are the one with Marta. Okay, you're reading the comments from your previous one. Yo-Yo, the flourishes are really pretty. Okay, great. Yeah. What about Anneli saying, what about the space between the A and the S? Yes, this is exactly what I mentioned here. Just for you to notice, I have it 10 seconds or 15 seconds delay when I read the chat. So all the comments come to me like 10 seconds afterwards. So create a ligature between S and A. That could be an idea, Roxel. Yeah, and a lot of people loves the decorative elements around. So great job here, Marta. I hope this was useful for you to move forward with this one. And let's move on to the last one from Salva. So Salva is sending us this kind of also like, I feel that this looks, or I'm not sure exactly what the application of this is, but this looks more like a logotype or something that is gonna be printed on a shirt or something like this. So, okay, I'm looking at this, and again, the same principle of the north, south, east, west applies for this one as well. Let me change for the blue color. So the principle of the north-south applies for this one as well. And I would really like you to help me give comments to this last piece that we're going to look at today. Because I think because it's more like a black and white drawing, we can see all the details. We can really look into the spacing. We can really look into the stroke width. We can really get nerdy about this one and give Salva a lot of comments about how this lettering piece could improve. So Salva Domingo is here on the chat, so great. So so I think this is a really good lettering piece to get nerdy and really look at every single detail, right? So again, north, south, east, west. And when I look at your, at this side of your lettering, I see these capital letters, which I always encourage everyone to use capital letters, because they really add a lot of flavor to your lettering and they really help you bring some special touch, a special personality, and just to make it a statement with your lettering. And as you can see in this lettering piece, you could have very expressive capital letters and have a more controlled lowercase group of letters, and that's totally fine. The capital letters are kind of doing the work. So if we look at the west-south part of Salva's composition, there's a lot going on. There's these two capital letters, and if you look at this side of the composition, everything is a lot more controlled. There's not much going on. There's these two repeating shapes right here, which are like, okay, two O's, they look exactly the same. So I wonder if Salva could bring something on this side of the composition, right? Either some sort of swatch that imitates or connects with that swatch on the C. The same happens here with the O. If there could be something there that helps you connect what's going on here with what's going on there, right? I wonder how you could bring some of that playfulness into the backside of your lettering. So let me go on the chat. So Ruxel, the thick and thins are somewhat inconsistent, especially on the rounded letters. Okay, yeah, so the thick and thins are actually in the rounded letters. I see that they're really consistent, and you can see that the T, the O, right? This O they're actually really consistent. I think the one that is really standing out is, I think I didn't make a new layer, or I did. Oh yeah, I did. Okay. So the one that is really standing out is this C. I think your C really needs to have some sort of like cut out here so that it starts looking a little bit more like the rest of your rounded shapes, right? Yeah. But it's true that some of the letters, as I think it was Ruxel was saying, some of the letters look a little bit thinner. If you look at the R, it looks thinner in comparison with the G. This O looks thinner, right? So consistency is a lot about what the letter is standing next to. So while, the I and the L right here don't seem to have a consistency problem, as you look at the R, you notice that the R is a lot thicker than that I, and then you start, rethinking the other letters, right? So it's a lot about finding a middle ground between all of this, right? So let me go back to the chat because we're getting nerdy now. Yeah, so stroke consistency, a lot of people is talking about this. Rebecca, Oin as well. Lovely clean type piece. Yeah, so you're looking at the D. Letter D can have some script or flourish elements be brought in, like on the C, for example. So the letter D. So Eoin is saying that it would be a good idea to bring some of the elements that you see here on the C. Okay, on the capital C onto the D. Of course, actually, in this lettering piece, you can bring a lot of flourish in, and you have a lot of opportunities to do that everywhere, right? Really, like, there's so many places where you can start bringing flourishes in. It all depends on what you want to do. If you want to do a flourish composition, if you want to do something that is a bit more simple, but definitely you can bring as many things as you want, and if you want, right? So let me clean that up. Eva is saying so that means in Spanish it means, or in English it means black crocodile, and Eva is saying that maybe the letters could be more eccentric, so they could support the idea of a crocodile eye. I see, because that's a crocodile eye. I just see it. Okay, great. So I'm now I get to see some of the ideas here. Okay. So Mallory is saying maybe more consistency. Yes. Yeah, so Mallory is suggesting a decorative swatch here on the G. As I said, it depends a lot on what you want to do. If you want to really bring a lot of consistency or a lot of flourishing in your lettering piece, you could also just work with the few flourishes that you have, that and try to bring a bit more of that flavor into those areas, right? Another thing I want to tell you, Salva, is has to do with spacing, and I see some spacing issues there on the O and the C, right? And you can see that the C is really it's kind of displaced. It feels like the C is from another family, right? So it needs some weight adjustments, but also to have a bit more space, or a bit like a better location there. And the same happens here, right? With this connection with your GR, where you have that blank space or that white space there. One suggestion would be to bring or to make that a little bit more compact, so that you don't have so much of a, sorry, I'm gonna bring this closer, so much of a loop here. You have something that goes up a bit more straight. Another thing would be, or another option for you would be to change that shape and have a different shape for that R. You know, I think one of the greatest things of lettering is that you can really within the same words and within the same lettering, you can create variations in similar letters or between similar letters. So if you have two E's in your lettering piece, you can create two slightly different E's. If you have two R's in your lettering piece, you can create one R in one way and the other R in another way, right? And I always encourage everyone, especially my students, to really explore how many ways you have to draw a letter form. So there's not just one way of drawing an R. There's just not one way to draw an E or a P or an L. So try to explore all of them, and you will see you can then find the one and use the one that works better for your lettering. So Raxel is saying, I also do think moving the letters above the baseline so that it feels more like a logo rather than just being like a type font, like also the C and N overlapping the first letters. Yeah. So I think that's also a great comment to have into account. The last thing I wanted to say is I always mention in our lettering greets and also to my students in the lettering seminar, I always speak about the the idea of turning rules or exceptions into rules. And when I look at your lettering piece, Salva, I see that you have, when I look specifically to your capital letters, I see that your N has a very interesting feature, which is this disconnected swatch here. And I wonder first why that's happening. I don't think it's a problem. I think it could be an interesting feature, but then I wonder, like, how can we turn that into a rule? So if that's happening there, is that the only place where it's going to happen, or can we make it happen in other places? So can you make it also happen in your C, for instance? Can you have some sort of disconnected swatch there, which creates a little bit of a space in your C, so that your C and your N have now like a similar language? So I always think that this is a very strong concept, the idea of, like, if you're drawing something and you find or you create or you draw a letter that you like, or has a specific feature that you like for instance this N, and you think like, hey, I like how this N looks, it looks really cool with that disconnected swatch, then take that and try to turn it into a rule. If you cannot turn it into a rule, then perhaps you need to drop it. But if you can turn it into a rule, could be the thing that really makes your design stand out, right? So it could become that, one detail that is like, look at this, I haven't seen this before, right? So always be looking for these elements and try to, if you find them, try to turn them into rules, right? So I hope you got a lot of comments, Salva, from this feedback. I hope this gives you also some ideas on how you can move forward in the future with your lettering piece. And I want to say thank you everyone for joining today. We are getting to the end of our lettering piece. And before we leave, I want to let you all know that there's a lot of students from the lettering seminar here, but as I said, this is a public event where we invite other students from other courses in my academy, but as well other people from outside, so that they can see the work that we do with the students inside the academy, and they can get to know and see what the progress of our students is. And for those that don't know what the lettering seminar is my signature program. Is an 8-week program where I take you, I walk you through the process of creating your best lettering piece yet, I say, and we really together go through all the fundamentals of lettering design, and we have also a very, very empowering community of hand lettering designers that is really like thriving for better and for more. And I want to tell you that we are opening registrations during Black Friday for another round of the lettering seminar. We opened registrations in April, and we didn't have the chance to take everyone in because we have limited seats for this program. So we are opening a new registration window at the end of November. And if you're interested in joining this group of thriving hand lettering artists and you really want to improve your skills at drawing letters, I would invite you to sign up for our waiting list on the letteringseminar.com. So you just go to the letteringseminar.com, you sign up for the waiting list, and we will let you know first when the enrollment is open. Because we're launching this during Black Friday, we are having some special treats for those that sign up this time, and I would definitely encourage you to jump in the program this time around. The other thing that I mentioned during my invitation to the Lettering Grid is that we are opening today registration for a free training for a limited time that is called 10 Commandments of Lettering. So after this session, you will get an email from me to join that training. So this training is essentially inspired by the fact that many people call my book this one. So many people call this book The Golden Secrets of Lettering. I bet that some of you have it as well. Many people call this book the Bible of lettering, and it made me feel, very proud, but also entitled enough to create the 10 Commandments of lettering. And it's a very fun, informative training that we are putting out there for free for a limited time, and we are giving you exclusive access, so priority access to this training right after this lettering grid. So I hope you will join, and if you love it, just share it with whatever friends and people who can really benefit and get value from it. So this is it for our session today. I so much appreciate that you joined and you made the time to join and really train your typographic eye through through this lettering grid. I really value all the comments that you have given on the chat. I think these are really the things and the experiences that kind of train you to start seeing the things to improve in your drawing. I always say that the solutions to your drawing are in your drawing, and by training your observation in these ways, you really get better at identifying those and at finding solutions for those. And before we leave, I would love for you to write on the chat, what are the things that you're taking away from this session today? What is the one thing that you say like, oh my God, this is something I learned new today. This is really something that I'm gonna take away from this session, and I'm gonna apply it to my work with letters, because I always say that these experiences, as small as they can be, they can go a big or a long run in improving your skills at doing something. So by you joining today and investing 1 hour of your time to train your skills, to train your observation skills, to give comments to other students and other peers out there, this was a way of, moving the needle a little bit towards where you want to go. So I would love for you to write on the chat and let me know, what is the one thing that you think you learned today? It could be anything. Could be, I learned that the spacing is like this and that, or I learned to look at the flourishes in a different way, or I learned to work on the consistency of my letter forms. So what is that one thing that you're taking home today and that will stay with you after this session? So I see some of you saying thank you for the feedback. You are welcome. I think that Salva, the pieces that we were looking at today, so the ones from Marta, let me just go back to those. The one from Salva, the one from Marta, the one from Tamara as well, and the one from Orsi. Thank you so much for submitting this and for really being courageous enough to share your work with other people, and also put your work out there and be open to get all the comments by the people that joined the lettering grid. So Praise letters. So you learn to fill the blank spaces between letters. Okay, amazing. So Kaya, thanks for the critic session. So you learn that you should always try to draw your flourishes from the letters. Amazing. So Prina, consistency in your letter forms. Elise, it was very useful to view the piece as north, south, east, west. Yeah, that's a game changer, really. I think that's a game changer. So and use that to create balance. Salva, convert the uncommon into a rule. Yes, so that's also, I think, something I would like you to keep from this session, that you will find, as you do create your drawings, as you create your lettering pieces, you will find things that are like a little bit off. And sometimes they are off because they just don't belong there, but sometimes they are just ideas that are right in front of you, that if you take them and you expand them, they can really take your lettering to the next level. So always be in the lookout for those small ideas that they might be like things that you will eventually get rid of. They might be things that really make your lettering grow. So Nelly, I learned that when you start a letter with features or flourishes, the last one will be cool with the features or flourishes too. Okay, so if you have a lettering piece that starts with a flourish, it would be cool to have a flourish at the end. So you start the lettering piece in the same way or in similar way than you started. So Patty, what you just say, I think is the best takeaway. The solution is in your drawing. The solution of for your drawing is in your drawing. Yes, exactly. So Annelise, keep the flourishes short. Yeah, so yes, and especially when you're starting or you're just exploring with flourishes, I think it is important to keep those flourishes simple. So the simpler they are, the more you can control them. And first you start with the simple flourishes, and later on you can start adding complexity to those. But first, just keep them simple. So thank you so much for sharing all of that on the chat, and I appreciate you. I appreciate that you have joined this lettering grid today. As I said, if you want to join the next round of the lettering seminar, I would definitely recommend you to sign up for the waiting list on the letteringseminar.com, and you will, as you access the course, you will also access our beautiful student community with thriving lettering artists and really like a community that will support you along the way. So thank you so much for joining this lettering grid, and I hope you have a great day, everybody. Bye bye.